Good morning. I got 3 different time updates. The clock said I had 2 minutes. Randy Cameron said I had a minute and a half. Andrew said you got 15 seconds. so I split the difference there. I waited about 30 seconds just to show Andrew that he's not the boss. How is everything? Everybody okay today? Okay. Any announcements or prayer requests we need to make today before we get going? What's that? Not yet, it's not. Morning to you ladies back there. Glad to have you all here too. Okay, let's bow for prayer. Our Father in heaven, we're so thankful that you've allowed us to be here today. We are thankful that you've left us a divine record of things that have happened in the past for us to learn from, and more importantly, your view and your word on those things that have happened. We pray that we'll be the kind of students and listeners and observers who will benefit from our study today, that you'll open our hearts and our eyes and our minds to see the things that you want us to see. We love you. Thank you for the many, many blessings that we have. And we offer this prayer to you in Jesus' name, and amen. Okay, so what did we talk about last week? Moses? Okay. We've talked about Moses the last, 7 weeks? So 8 weeks? That's a pretty good guess. What did we talk about? Numbers chapter 11. We're getting closer. Now everybody's looking to see what's on the top of the previous lesson, that Moses felt overwhelmed. Okay. Okay, that's right. He felt overwhelmed, and so he asked for help. So what did God do? Gave him help. What did he give him? 70 men to help serve and help to function in that way. How would you describe Moses at that point when he was asking for help? Oh, well, overwhelmed. Okay. What else would you say? Desperate? Excuse me? Okay, I would say he was a lot discouraged, but okay. He was discouraged. Felt overwhelmed, depressed. Richard? Yeah, I agree. I mean, we sometimes want to sanitize these guys and the history. I think he really does feel just absolutely overwhelmed, upset. He takes it to God and said, I didn't bear these people, and kind of I didn't ask for this job to begin with. It was almost his way. Yeah, he should be, right? He should learn a lot about delegating authority or delegating responsibilities out because... Okay. And I think that's a great message to learn about any kind of leadership role, any kind of aspect of what you're trying to do in helping yourself and helping people or a group of people. And I think Mark makes a good point that he's learned. It's just, it's this gigantic, overwhelming kind of responsibility that he looks at times and says, I can't do all of this. And so he's finally seeing the need for help, and God has appointed these different helpers. We already looked at before the leaders of tens, leaders of 50, leaders of hundreds, leaders of thousands. And I would suppose that they're working to some degree. We don't have any more record specifically about them as to what they did. But here is this other occasion where he just feels everything is coming to him again. And maybe that the people need to learn these lessons too. And there is a true aspect of that. The delegation, you might delegate somebody to do something, but the minds of the people sometimes is to still go back to the other person, go back to the figurehead or the leader or the one that they think, rather than to go through the channels. I mean, that happens in a work situation, it happens in families sometimes, happens in churches. So he doesn't seem very excited. He seems overwhelmed. He seems discouraged. He seems frustrated. He seems mad. God, I need some help. So God appoints these helpers for him. And today we're going to highlight what should be the highlight of everything as far as Israel is concerned. Has been waiting for this moment ever since God told Moses that I want you to lead the people out of Israel. This ought to be the highlight, because they're going to come right up to the brink of going into the land. I mean, this is the land they've been waiting for. This is the land they left Egypt for. This is the land they crossed over the Red Sea, and they're coming to, and they get right there to the brink of all of this. It should be the highlight of their journey. They're about to enter this land. So let's look and see. We're in chapter 13 today of the book of Numbers chapter 13. And so Moses is going to send some scouts out to go look over the land and to check and see how these things are. We're in Numbers chapter 13, beginning at verse 1. Excuse me. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel. From each tribe of their fathers you shall send a man, every one a leader among them. So you see that there is this leadership aspect that we talked about before, that they're recognized. These are recognizable men, these leaders are, in the families, in the groups. So why do you think that why would God have them send one per family group, or one per tribe, as we tend to use the word? Why do you think that would be the case? What? Okay, so it would be fair representation is the idea of this. I mean, that's the design of our country's political system, right? I mean, initially, that is the design of it. I'm not saying that's where we are, okay? But that's the design. Each state is supposed to have representation in the Senate and in the Congress to be able to balance the power, as it were, per state, and who has this and who has that. That's the design of all of this, that each state has its representation, so that you don't feel like, hey, we're left out over here. Somebody else is speaking for us. So God says to send, I mean, I'm supposing that's why. He doesn't tell us, but I'm supposing that's why that's the case. So it says, Moses sent them out into the wilderness of Paran, according to the command of the Lord, all of the men who were heads of the children of Israel. Now, these were their names, and he goes through and he lists off all of these different men. Excuse me. And then verse 16, and these are the names of the men who Moses sent to spy out the land. And Moses called Hoshea, the son of Nun, Joshua. So it's almost like you're getting a tease here that Joshua is going to figure prominently, which he already has a little bit in our historical narrative. But these men are to go out and spy the land. Now look at the detailed instructions that they're given. Verse 17, then Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan and said unto them, go up into the way of the south, or the Negev, yours might say, and go to the mountains and see what the land is like, whether the people who dwell there are strong or weak, few or many, whether the land they dwell in is good or bad, whether the cities that they inhabit are camps or strongholds, whether the land is rich or poor, whether there are forests there or not. And then the admonition, be of good courage and bring some of the fruit of the land. Now, this was the time of the first ripe grapes. So how detailed is Moses in this job description for these men? Now, it's very detailed. He doesn't just say, hey, go out and look things over, come on back and tell us what you think. Okay? I mean, there is an aspect of that, but what he actually says to them is go and tell us about the people. Are there a lot of people, or are there just a few people? Tell us about the cities. Are they just encampments? or are they strongholds, these cities? Tell us about the fruit of the land. Tell us about the lay of the land. Are there forests there? Why would that be important? To know if there's forest or not forest. Okay, could be the wood just for production itself. What else? Cultivation, you say? Okay, yeah. All right. Richard? Okay. Okay, yeah, I think that's exactly right, especially the forest aspect of this. If there's forest or not forest and you're coming in as a military, why would you want to know that? Yeah, whether I can hide or not hide, and how we're going to fight. You fight differently in the forest than you're going to fight out in an open field or just the open, bare land. And so he says, bring back all of these details so that we can make an assessment of this land. And I think he is looking at it from a military standpoint. Moses at least knows to some extent we're going to have to go in and dispossess those people. And we're going to have to take this land to some degree. He understands it. How that's going to happen, I don't think he knows yet. I think you're right, Richard. Go ahead, Randy. Right? Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think that's exactly the point, that they look at it purely through human eyes, those 10 spies when they come back, and they said, it is a great land. I mean, they all admit to that. It's a great land, just exactly like God said. But, okay, and that's where this and they're looking at it purely militarily, purely from the eyes of man. Why would they bring back produce of the land? Okay, show them how bountiful it is. And remember, one of the big complaints is all we've been eating is this manna, okay? And so they're going to bring back some of the produce of the land. This is truly a beautiful, wonderful land that flows with milk and honey, is God's description of this. So look on, as it says. So they went up and they spied out the land, verse 21, into the wilderness of Zin, as far as Rehob, near the entrance of Hamath. They went up through the south. They came to Hebron and all. They're just going everywhere. It's what it says, in essence. Verse 23, then they came to the valley of Eshcol. And there they cut down a branch with one cluster of grapes, and they carried it between two of them on a pole. And they also brought some of the pomegranates and figs. And the place was called the valley of Eshcol because of the cluster which the men of Israel cut down there. And they returned from spying out the land after 40 days. Now, that's a pretty big bunch of grapes, isn't it? I mean, it's not just, obviously, it's not just one little bunch of grapes. They've cut down a whole vine, as it were, tie it onto a stick. Two guys are carrying this. Now, when I did a children's weekend years ago, we went through this very passage, and I remember we got purple balloons and green felt, and we blew them up, and we made a bunch of grapes that were huge. Each grape, obviously, the size of a balloon, and tied it onto a stick so that the kids could see just this visualization of what's going on here. Now, I don't think it was grapes that were as big as a balloon, but the idea is, take back the bounty of this land. Look how wonderful this is. And it obviously is very lush, and it's used and recognized in this way as they come back. So they've been gone for 40 days. Now that's just kind of dropped in there as a historical narrative. And at this point, if you don't know the rest of the history, that doesn't mean a whole lot, right? The 40 days that they're gone, because we hear about those kind of things all the time in the Bible. They went here and it took this, or they took that, or this was the case. But those 40 days figure very prominently. So they've been gone for 40 days. Now now they departed and they came back to Moses and Aaron. I'm at verse 26. And all of the congregation of the children of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh, And they brought back word to them, to the congregation, and they showed them the fruit of the land. And you could parenthetically put in there, and all the people went, oh, okay. I mean, there is this awe aspect of how great this is. Then they told him, and they said, we went to the land which you sent us. Now, if you're one of those who are listening, how interested are you in this report? Oh yeah, you've got rapt attention to what they're saying here. This is important. We sent you to go spy out the land. You've been gone for over a month. You didn't just walk around, come back a few hours later, say, hey, yeah, looks pretty good. Okay. They've been gone for over a month. They come back now, and they begin to speak, and we went to the land which you sent us. Okay, I mean, we're all leaning in, we're all listening. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is the fruit. It's like, so what is the description at this point of the land? It's amazing. It's not just good, it's amazing. I mean, it's exactly what God said it was going to be. This is, I mean, it's a land flowing with milk and honey. We brought back some of the produce. Look at this. And everybody's just, they're excited now. They're interested in this. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there. Those guys are giants, by the way. And the Amalekites dwell in the land of the south. The Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains. And the Canaanites dwell by the sea along the banks of the Jordan. So there's all these ites that live out there. I mean, and not just that, but they're strong and they're big, they're huge. We saw some giants while we were there. And it's a great land, yes, but the cities are fortified. And there's a lot of people, and they're strong people. So now you've been leaning in, listening to this report, and you're thinking, I'm not too excited about the prospects now. Like Randy said, they're looking at from a military standpoint. Is their report accurate, by the way? Yeah, it is. It's an accurate report. It's not like they just came back and, trumped up a bunch of details and, oh, by the way, and start making up things. This is the description of the land. Verse 30, it says, then Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and take possession, for we are well able to overcome it. So, please mark down, at this point, the other ones have not said we can't do it. All they had said was, it's a great land, but it's fortified and it's strong and there's giants that live there. And Caleb says, in essence, okay, so let's go do it. Remember, Caleb is one of the 12 spies who is going out. Let us go up at once and take possession, for we are well able to overcome it. But the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against this people, for they are stronger than we. And they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, the land which we have gone through as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants. And all of the people whom we saw there are men of great stature. There we saw giants, the descendants of Anak come from the giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight. That's one of the most telling aspects, verse 33, Numbers 13:33, of the entire incident. And that is, we saw ourselves as nothing, and so we are nothing. We can't do this. Okay, now Caleb says, let's go. The spies say, no. So why would there be such a difference in reaction of the people? Okay, so from a human standpoint, we can't do this. I mean, and that would be a fair assessment. We're not a trained army. we're going to come in and try to dispossess them. They're already entrenched. They've got strong cities. They've got gigantic people there. We can't do this from a human standpoint. Gwen. Right. And why would that be? Why would it be? Okay. And then again, it comes back to the reality of not seeing God in the moment. As Gwen said, they forgot what God is able to do. As Randy pointed out, they're seeing it. Here's a military view. The land, we can't do this. We just can't do this. There is a divine or spiritual view. We can do it because God will do it for us. All right, Edwin. Okay. 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 I think that's a great point, and I mean that's a point of us. I think it's a point of God recording it for us, first of all, so we look at ourselves today, not just to give us a history lesson, but to see. And I think that's an exact point that we fail to appreciate God and His working even today. We're a little bit afraid sometimes to give God credit, which I think we ought to be a whole lot more afraid not to give Him credit, in my judgment. And so if I am of the opinion that God has providentially brought something about in my life and I give God credit for that, I don't know that God looks at me and puts His hands on His hips and says, I didn't do that, and is mad at me. But I think the other way, if I think, well, just look at how lucky I was today, that things just worked out so well for me on my job, in my family, or whatever it is. And look how fortunate, look how lucky I was, rather than to say, God was in this, and to let God have the credit and the glory in that regard. By the way, what's the word providence mean? Anybody know what the word providence means? So the first part of the word, providence, is provide, actually. And God provides ahead of time is what providence means. That before a certain situation or whatever the case is, God has prepared or provided something ahead of time. I feel 100% confident that God providentially led me to Melissa. Now, I could be wrong in it. It could have just purely been happenstance. We happened to sit at the same table the first week of school at Florida College, and I just happened to think, wow, that's a good-looking girl down at the other end of the table. I need to meet her. That could have been the whole thing. I believe God arranges things sometimes like that. Am I wrong? I might be, but I'd rather give God credit than to take it upon myself and to say, man, I just happened to manipulate myself at just the right place and got at the other end of the table because I saw this good-looking girl. That, I didn't. It just happened to be. I know that much of it. So the idea of taking God out of the picture, and that's what they do. They forgot that God is involved in this. At least the bulk of the spies did. It's a great land. It's a wonderful land, but we can't do it. We just can't do it. There's giants who live there. The cities are too strong. There are too many people. We can't do it. And Caleb at this point is the lone voice that says, yes, we can, because we have God. We have God on our side. So Caleb stands out. All right, let's see. I thought I saw somebody else's hand. No. Okay. So look into chapter 14. So, after this bad report goes out, and I think there's really some strong information here about being careful of who we talk to and how we talk. I mean, it's one thing for the spies to think, I don't know if we can do this. It's another thing to spread a bad report among the people, which is what they do. And they discourage the people. So all of the congregation lifted up their voice, verse 1 of chapter 14. lifted up their voices, and they cried, and the people wept all night. And all of the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron, and the whole congregation said unto them, if only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we had died in the wilderness. Why has the Lord brought us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and our children would become victims? Would it not have been better for us to return? Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? So they said to one another, let's select a leader and go back to Egypt. And as you read this, I mean, there should be an aspect of you that says, what in the world are they thinking? How could they think like this? So how could they think like this? Because they're human like we are. And we sometimes do the same thing. Richard. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and as normally it happens, the report gets what? As it spreads? Worse and worse. Bigger and badder, okay? And so it's a great land, but we can't do this. We're not going to be able to take this land. It's too strong, too many people. We're just not going to be able to do it. So now as that plays out to the next person, the land's not even that good as far as I'm concerned. No telling how the story goes. But the report is, we're going to die here in battle. Now, that's a scary thing, okay? I don't want to discount that. They're so discouraged, they think, we'd have been better off just die in Egypt than to come out here and have to fight about it. At least in Egypt, we'd have died of our own accord, as it were. Natural causes, sickness, whatever, or we had been enslaved so long, whatever their thinking is. Or if we'd have just died in the wilderness. But now, Moses has brought us right here to the brink of this land to go into battle. And we're all going to die in battle. Not just us, but who? Our wives and our children. Okay? I mean, there's family dynamic in all of these things. So, why were they so successful in spreading this bad report? We do love bad news. That's exactly right. It's I can remember years ago, I mean, it's been years and years ago, that on the evening news that, I know, it was Dan Rather on the evening news one night decided to end his broadcast and gave one word. He said, courage. And all of a sudden people were, whoa, what does he do? I mean, they're just going ballistic about why would he do? He said, well, I just wanted to try to encourage people in the midst of all of this bad news. Now I'm thinking, okay, well, let me, we have a frame of reference maybe that comes later with Dan Rather in some things, but that just seemed, here's all this bad news. By the way, courage. Okay. That's a nice admonition, but bad news spreads a whole lot easier and a whole lot faster, it seems, because we all tend to be doomsday people. Oh, that's it. It's the end of the world. That's all there's going to be. This is how it's. And so the word spreads far and wide. So they finally say, okay, let's appoint a leader to take us back to Egypt. I mean, just think for a moment, how successful would that be, you think? You're the Israelites, you come marching back to Egypt. Hey, by the way, white flag here. We're coming back. We just want those good jobs that we had before. What were they before? They were slaves before. I mean, this is just, it's mind-boggling. Edwin? Right. Yeah. Yeah, the lens of time, we're able to do the same things ourselves sometimes, and we dress up the history as to how it was, and the flowers were blooming and the birds were singing and it was sunny all day long, but it wasn't too hot. I mean, we can almost rewrite history just in a blink of an eye, but they're thinking that would be better than going into battle, and we don't want to go into battle. So let's just appoint a leader to go back. So Moses and Aaron then fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. But Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who spied out the land, tore their clothes, and they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel. The land that we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. They're going to just re-emphasize the first part of the report that all 12 spies gave. If, verse 8, if the Lord delights in us, then he will bring us into the land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Oh, only do not rebel against the Lord, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread, and their protection has departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear. Now, to go back to Gwen's statement before, they had forgotten God. Maybe they had. So what did Joshua and Caleb do? They remind them, hey, God's fought for us in the past. If God delights in us, he'll give us this land. God will do for us these things. In fact, they're just bread for the taking, as it were, right in front of us. Don't be afraid. Now, have you ever sat in a situation, whether it's at work or in the military or something like that, and had a talk that people tried to rally the forces, rally the troops? Isn't that what's going on here? I mean, they're trying to say, no, don't go down this path. This is the path to success. Put your faith in God, and God will take care of us. In fact, they could have said, remember when Moses stood up on the mountain and he held his staff up in the air, and we won that battle. Don't be afraid. But all they can see is this is a big, scary land. This is a big, scary people. They are strong. They are many. Their cities are fortified. We can't do it. We'd be better off to just go back to Egypt and get it over with. And all of the congregation, verse 10, said, Amen, let's go forward. No, it doesn't say that. And all of the congregation said, let's stone them with stones. What in the world is going on here? What does it mean, stone them with stones? Throw rocks at them until they die. Okay? I mean, we can sanitize it in some way. Let's throw rocks at them until we kill them and they die. That's a pretty horrific response, don't you think? To, hey guys, we can do this if God's on our side. If God is for us, they can't stand. There's no way. They're just bread for the taking. Let's go in and do this. And so the reaction is not, you know what, maybe we need to think about this. Let us get back with you about this idea of going back to Egypt, but we're going to cogitate on this tonight. Roll this over. I mean, the reaction is immediate. Let's kill them. They told us to go forward and trust God. Let's just kill them. That seems maybe slightly out of character. Now, I've not tried to purposely run Moses down. I want to be careful that I let you know that. I think he's a hero of faith. Been trying to show you the reality of the human side of Moses. Okay, he's overwhelmed at times. He's reluctant at times. He doesn't want to do this at times. But Moses has a great opportunity to just say, I'm done with you. Okay? I mean, I am done with these people. But what he does is he falls down on his face before the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. Obviously, prayer is being made. It says at verse 11. Then the Lord said unto Moses, how long will these people reject me, and how long will they not believe me with all the signs which I have performed among them? So going back to what Gwen said again, God said, hey, haven't I shown them over and over and over what I can do? How long am I going to put up with this? I will strike them with the pestilence and disinherit them, and I will make of you a nation greater and mightier than they. So not only does Moses have the opportunity from a personal vantage point to say, I'm done with you, God offers him that option. God says, Moses, I'm fed up with these people. You think you're fed up? I'm fed up. Okay? And I'm just going to wipe them out, disinherit them, and I will start with you, and I will build a new nation. Now, if Moses was somebody eager for a position or power, what would his response have been? I'll take it. Okay? Yeah, sounds good to me. Where do I sign up? Okay? God says, I will disinherit that. I will start out of you and make a mighty nation. Now, the point I'm trying to make in today's class specifically is that Joshua steps up. So does Caleb in this. And I think when we talk about a mentor-mentee relationship especially, that mentees tend to float to the top. The ones that you really want to put time and invest in and encourage, they tend to float to the top and they're noticeable. How was Joshua noticeable? He said, we can do it. If God's on our side, we can do it. And Moses has that opportunity to say yes to the offer that God makes of him. But look at the heart and the man Moses. It's truly astounding to me in the midst of all of this. Moses said to the Lord, God, I don't know if you thought about this. He didn't say those words. Moses said to the Lord, then the Egyptians will hear about it, for by your might you brought these people up out of the land of Egypt. You brought these people up from among them, and they will tell it to the inhabitants of the land. They have heard that you, Lord, are among these people, and that you, Lord, are seen face to face, and your cloud stands above them, and you go before them as a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Now, if you kill these people, meaning who? The Israelites. If you kill these people as one man, then the nations will, which have heard of your fame, will speak, saying, because the Lord was not able to bring this people to the land which he swore to give them, therefore he killed them in the wilderness. What would you say is Moses' reasoning for talking to God at this point? I mean, what's the basis of what he's saying here? Huh? Okay, credibility. Okay. You mean God's credibility? Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, I mean, he's, for lack of better terms, Moses is concerned about God's reputation, okay? And he says, God, if you do this, you're going to get a bad reputation. There's going to be a report about you that you started something, but you couldn't finish it. You couldn't pull it off. And so because you couldn't pull it off, you just killed them all. You looked at the land, they got right up to the brink of the land, and you said, can't do this. So God, you just wiped them all out. And Moses is not concerned about his own reputation. He's concerned about God's reputation. Okay. So, and it goes on to say, let's see, where did I pick up? Verse 15. Now, If you kill these people as one man, then the nations who have heard of your fame will say, because the Lord was not able to bring these people in the land which he swore to give them, therefore he killed them in the wilderness. And now I pray, let the power of my Lord be great, just as you have spoken. The Lord is long-suffering and abundant in mercy, forgiving iniquity and transgression. But he by no means will clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers and the children to the third and fourth generation. Pardon the iniquity of this people, I pray, according to the greatness of your mercy, just as you have forgiven this people from Egypt even until now. Is this anything new? No. God, you've been dealing with these stiff-necked, hard-hearted people all along. But notice Moses, you talk about a moment of leadership. Moses absolutely is stellar in this moment. That Moses says, God, don't do this. I'm concerned about your reputation, what people will say. I know you're a merciful, loving, forgiving God. I am pleading with you. I am begging you to show mercy to these people. It's not been too long ago that Moses is about ready to wipe his hands and walk away and say, I am fed up with these people, right? But he sees the reality of all of this unfolding in front of him. Then the Lord said, verse 20, I have pardoned according to your word, but truly as I live, all of the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord. Because all these men who have seen my glory and the signs which I did in Egypt in the wilderness, and have put me to the test now these 10 times, and have not heeded my voice, they certainly shall not see the land which I swore to their fathers, nor shall any of those who rejected me see it. But my servant Caleb, because he has a different spirit in him, and he has followed me fully, I will bring into the land where he went, and his descendants shall inherit it. Now the Amalekites and the Canaanites dwell in the valley. Tomorrow turn and move out into the wilderness and the way of the Red Sea. What does God say? Turn around, head back, like you're going to Egypt again. What? Turn around and head back like you're going to the Red Sea. And God says, I've forgiven them, but they will not come into the land. So look on as he continues. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, how long shall I bear with this evil generation who complain against me? I've heard the complaints which the children of Israel make against me, saying to them, as I live, says the Lord, just as you have spoken in my hearing, so I will do to you. So in essence, the first thing God says is, you said I couldn't do it. So in essence, he says, I will not do it for you. Just as you said, it's going to be. It's going to happen just as you said. Saying to them, as I live, says, so verse 29, the carcasses of you who have complained against me shall fall in this wilderness, all of you who are numbered according to your entire number from 20 years old and above, except for Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun, you shall by no means enter the land which I swore that I would make you to dwell in. But your little ones whom you said would be victims, I will bring them in, and they shall know the land which you have despised. But as for you, your carcasses shall fall in the wilderness, and your sons shall be shepherds in the wilderness 40 years, and bear the brunt of your infidelity until your carcasses are consumed in the wilderness. Do you get the impression that God's a little upset? He is direct in telling them how this is going to be and why this is going to be. According to the number of the days, verse 34, that you spied out the land, 40 days. Remember, we mentioned that before. For each day you shall bear your guilt 1 year. Namely, for 40 years you shall know my rejection. I, the Lord, have spoken this. I will surely do so to all this evil congregation who are gathered together against me in the wilderness. They shall be consumed, and there they shall die. So, why did they wander 40 years in the wilderness? Because God said 1 year for each day the spies were gone. They were gone 40 days. You were going to wander 40 years. Until how long? All of this generation dies except Joshua and Caleb. How many people did we say are in the Israelite camp? 2 to 3 million people. So we're not talking about they had 30 funerals over the next 40 years. I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of people are dying over the next 40 years. Then Moses told these words to all the children of Israel, and the people mourned greatly. And they rose early in the morning, went up to the top of the mountain, saying, "Here we are. We'll go into the place that the Lord has promised, for we have sinned." So what did they say? Okay, that's a good idea, God. We will go forward like you told us to do. And what does God say? Okay. Is that what he says? No. Moses said, "Now, why do you transgress the command of the Lord? For this will not succeed. Do not go up, lest you will be defeated by your enemies, for the Lord is not among you." So now we go back to what Randy's pointed out, which others have pointed out. If you go into the land from a military standpoint, what? You can't do it. You're going to lose. Because God is no longer with you. For the Amalekites and the Canaanites are there before you, and you shall fall by the sword because you have turned away from the Lord, and the Lord will not be with you. But they presumed to go up to the mountaintop. Nevertheless, neither the ark of the covenant of the Lord nor Moses departed from the camp. And then the Amalekites and the Canaanites who dwell in the mountain came down and attacked them and drove them back as far as Hormah. So they said, "Oh God, you're right. We're going to go forward." They're warned, don't do it. You won't be successful. God's not with you. They said, "We're going to do it anyway." Okay? I mean, has their mindset changed? No, they haven't listened to God at all, okay, in the whole situation. So God says, go, we can't do it. God says, don't go, they say, we can do it, okay? But they're defeated at that place. But the point, as I've got there at the very bottom, mentors step up, and mentees set a good example. Joshua and Caleb